Yellow! Fancy seeing you here. Welcome to yet another broadcast of Optimove's Marketing Amid Corona. I hope you're ready for a concentrated dose of marketing news, thoughts, and ideas amid the coronavirus outbreak. Today we have some data and insights about the differences between newly acquired customers and existing customers during these times. I'll be reviewing a report by Capgemini on consumer behavior, and we'll have Postfunnel's editor-in-chief with some interesting picks of his own. Ready or not, here we come. Today I'll be sharing a research published by Capgemini Research Institute based on more than 11,000 consumers they have surveyed earlier in April. Key findings highlighted here are: one, appetite for online shopping and convenience will continue accelerating even post the pandemic. Consumers will expect safer practices, and consumers are more likely to engage with brands that embody a sense of purpose and strong sustainability credentials. Now, they're looking at both short and midterm. Let's take a look at a few key stats and facts they found here. So first and foremost, consumer interactions, online versus physical stores. So we're seeing a growing trend in online. So before the COVID, looking at 30%, during COVID, 37%, and in the next 6 to 9 months, 40%, with high interactions with online retail channels. What we're seeing in offline is starting with almost 60%, deep diving into 24%, and then projecting a 39% in the next 6 to 9 months. So we're seeing an uptick between immediate times and the near future, but still the levels will be lower than before the virus outbreak. Let's take a look at operational excellence here. So we're seeing this. Consumers demand delivery reassurance and flexibility. To the statement, I prefer to purchase from organizations who offer delivery assurance of compensation for further cancellations. We're seeing current 45% agreeing with the statement, and in 6 to 9 months, 49%. So we're seeing that it doesn't only impact the current state, but also future expectations of consumers. The statement, I prefer to purchase with organizations offering delivery and flexible time slots, from 45% in current preference to 50% in the next 6 to 9 months. So we're seeing that the consumer demand for delivery and reassurance flexibility. We're seeing that not only that this is expected in current times, but also the expectation grows in the close future. Scrolling down here and skipping a few, looking at safety measures. Consumers will prefer safe and contactless practices. 77% of surveyed consumers will be more cautious about cleanliness, health, and safety. 62% of consumers will switch to brands that show higher levels of product safety. And 54% of consumers will prefer local or regional products. Let's continue scrolling down here to another interesting finding. Spend patterns. We're seeing that what we're seeing here is the turquoise part of this bar is percent of consumers expecting to increase purchase, and the I don't know what this is, pink or purple, percent of consumers expecting to decrease purchase. So what we are seeing here is that for grocery and food supplies, we're seeing a 35% consumers increasing, 31% increasing in personal care products versus 25% decreasing. We're seeing things tilt around at home entertainment, less increase than decrease. And again, this is an interesting breakdown. I obviously will share a link to this report, not only to see the facts and stats, but also look at the recommendations. Next up, purpose and sustainability. We're seeing that we're seeing here a percentage of consumers agreeing to the below statement. I prefer my retailer to showcase sense of purpose and give back to society community. Currently 50%, and in 6 to 9 months, 53%. Again, this does not only impact immediate consumer patterns, but also near future patterns. And the last stat I will be sharing also about purpose and sustainability. Once pandemic is over, 67% of consumers will be more conscious about sorry about that, conservation of natural resources, and 65% of consumers will be more mindful in their purchase habits. So also going green wise. And to leave you with those three dots or a bit of optimism, let's look at the future. 48% of consumers feel optimistic about recovery from the current outbreak. 70% of consumers feel optimistic about the recovery of the current outbreak when looking in the next 12 months. There's also a breakdown by country, but what we can see is even excluding a few outliers such as UK and Italy, the vast majority are neutral or optimistic. So I think again, I will share a link to this article with very interesting inputs and insights for any brand out there selling directly to consumers. So take a look, read through this super interesting report by Capgemini. I highly recommend taking a look and thoroughly reading through this report. In addition to the numbers I've shared, there are also a lot of recommendations on actions to be taken. I'll share the link to the full research in the comment section of this broadcast. And to our next item. Balancing resources and budgets between acquisition and retention has always been a huge challenge, and there is no one way to go about it. It very much depends on the maturity of the business, the nature of it, and a handful of additional variables. In these times, regardless to what your current strategy is in the retention acquisition equation, you should probably rethink it. Consumers aren't too open to interact with brands they haven't interacted with in the past. Media budgets are being cut. And on the other hand, activating and communicating with existing customers is quite cost effective and has a high likelihood to have a high impact. Our strategic services team looked at large data sets, aiming to find some trends on how do newly acquired customers differ in behavior from existing customers and what we marketers can learn from these differences. I had a chat yesterday with Scott Shapiro, strategic services team lead from our New York office, who led this research, and I cross-interrogated him on his findings. Let's have a look. Hello, Scott Shapiro in New York, strategic services team lead.
Hi, Beavis. How's it going?
Not too bad, crazy times, but still keeping sanity. How about you?
Sounds about right. Just trying to just stay on top of things and enjoy the little things day to day.
Great stuff. So I heard that you and your team have been looking at comparing new versus existing customers and how they act and behave during these hectic times. Um, Share some insights.
Sure. Yeah. No, we've taken a focus on sort of trying to figure out in terms of the approach during this time. I mean, how much should you be spending towards trying to acquire new customers and how valuable they are to a brand when you can't attract them in store. There's sort of a lot going on in the news that's taking people's attention away. So how much of time should you really spend focusing on trying to find new customers rather than cultivating that relationship with your existing customer database? So anywhere from your sort of currently active customers who really are currently engaged with you and really just trying to make sure they stick around to kind of even just diving into the deeper ends of your former customers, whether it's your recently lapsed customers, your longtime dormant customers, to see if you can kind of win people back, but that have a previous relationship with you. So we were curious to see if there was like a big difference in behavior among a number of different industries as to how they were seeing the new customers coming in compared to the existing customers they had. And I think we were kind of surprised by a number of the things that we found, especially as we were figuring that we would be seeing a lot more retention of current customers relative to the acquisition of new.
So I know that at these times it's all about a mix, right? At the beginning of when the virus outbreak just started, we've heard about many brands just bombarding all customers with COVID messaging. And then, there were a lot of like memes and stuff about, a brand I haven't heard of for 10 years just started speaking with me. And then on the other side, we've seen, media media budgets cut by half and then impacting acquisition. So again, it's all about that mix. So tell us a little bit about how you advise the brands that you speak with to go about this, given their area of business or the categories that they sell into.
Yeah, so I mean, it was interesting. One of the things we noticed was obviously you have seen an increase in retail shoppers crossing to online, which you'd kind of expect, especially, I mean, just by default, they have no other outlet to shop on. So if they previously were a retail customer, they don't have that channel, so you kind of have to get them online, and it has worked. I mean, we've seen a pretty sizable increase in the number of retail customers crossing to online that you typically would see in a month. And you've also seen actually an increase in net new customers in sort of the end of March into April, across most of the different brands. Most notably, I think we saw it in skincare, where the ratio of new customers to existing customers purchasing went up by like 16% in March compared to February. And if we sort of hold that February number, it actually went up 36% compared to February and April,
Wow.
meaning that the number of new customers they were bringing in relative to the number of existing customers coming back kept increasing. Now, we didn't see quite the same increase in something like fashion, where we saw um, first a sort of about 18-19% increase, and then that kind of held in April. But that's still another sort of sector that saw a higher ratio of new customers to existing 2 straight months.
So we're seeing
Um,
also an increase in fashion and new customers buying fashion, and not at the same rate as skincare, which pretty much makes sense, right? Because one is a bit more essential than the other at these times.
yeah, but it's been interesting to see that, especially in skincare, it's been very promotion heavy. New customers were like 50% more likely to use a promotion, relative to past new customers, and it affected it in the AOV. So the average order value dropped by like 27% relative to February for new customers specifically. So they do seem to be pushing these acquisition channels, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time, especially, so we see this a lot during heavy sale periods like Black Friday, around the holidays generally. Um, you gain a lot of acquisition customers, but they're not strong customers. So it will be curious to see if, and we would probably suggest that brands at least start to at least adapt maybe a more balanced approach, where they're by focusing a little more attention on the current database of customers, you might be able to extract a little more value at a little less cost. Fashion has not been quite the same. They've had different approach than skincare on the promo side. There's been an increase, but not nearly as dramatically as that 50% increase on new customers. A few of the fashion brands in the study actually had basically cut all promotions, or at least heavily reduced the number of promotions, and that definitely had an effect on new customers coming in, but overall fashion hasn't seen the same hit in order value. It's only dropped by about 7% in new compared to that 27% in skincare for new customers. And there's actually been no change in order value for returning customers, where it has dropped 16% in skincare. So I think that you've seen sort of a couple different approaches, and to maintain sort of the value of your customer database, the promo heavy approach might help the numbers sort of look good in the short term, but might actually not help as much in the long run.
And from what I remember from researches that we did in the past for like a high discount season, so Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you want to have a different a retention strategy in place for those audiences acquired during these heavy discount periods. So is that something that we also want to suggest doing these times?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that obviously customers who were a net new customer during the sort of Corona era, let's say, might require a different sort of like welcome package almost. You may need to cultivate different, um, almost, since we usually recommend around the sort of welcome series for a customer to really educate a customer on your brand and like what you stand for and what makes you stand out and different. And that might look a lot different now. It might not matter as much that you have X and Y, but you really want to highlight the the way you're protecting your workers and keeping your supply chains and making sure that like the product will get to you, but here are the safety measures we've put in place that both keep you safe, our workers safe, and just sort of keeps everyone happy. I think that it's gonna really change the messaging, and I think that even if things slow down with this, knowing that a customer started their journey in this time will have a lasting impact even 6 months from now, even if things have, I mean, I wouldn't say go back to normal because I'd be pretty surprised if it's just everyone's long and forgotten. But I think that if you can think back to when they came in, if they came in between March and May, at least at the start of this, um, you might be talking to a very specific type of customer who was engaging with you for very specific needs, and maybe you should use that to your advantage when continuing to message to them.
So action item here is you've spent money on acquiring the new customers. You brought them in probably in in lost profit because you've been very heavy on discounts. Make sure you have a retention strategy in place to try to do the best to keep them coming back in the future and
Yeah,
hopefully making them
absolutely.
profitable.
Yeah.
Any other interesting stuff you found in this research?
Yeah, I mean, I think that one of the things that this was most notable in the fashion industry, but there was actually been a steady increase in basket size, which I think, relatively speaking, at least from sort of an assumptions point of view, um, shipping and time to order, we've gotten so used to like a Amazon Prime 2-day shipping kind of mentality, and even Amazon has now slowed down non-essential goods to being almost to give yourself 1-2 weeks to receive products. I think that people who had gotten used to this sort of instant gratification world are sort of slowly starting to realize that that's not the current state of the world. And so rather than say, buy one item, have it shipped, then a couple days later go, oh, I forgot, I also want these two items, let's do that. I think people are being a little more deliberate with their orders. And so you see this steady increase in basket size because I think people are saying, okay, I'm going to build a basket. Maybe I'm not going to purchase as hastily. I'm going to be very deliberate. I'm going to build a 5-item basket of exactly what I think I need right now. I think it's a little bit more needs driven, even in certain, say, luxury goods. You're saying, I want these 5 things. I'll build this basket. I know it's not going to arrive for 2 or 3 weeks. It's not urgent that I get this, but these are the items I want.
Got it.
And I do think that there's ways to kind of not to take advantage of that, where whether it's building promotions around hitting a certain number of items, which they kind of already seem to be doing, but to kind of keep leaning into the way they're already behaving, to kind of keep pushing them that way. If you see that maybe it also would help the business, where if you think fewer orders of bigger order size is better for the way that the current warehouse is running. Totally separately, I have a friend who works for a dry goods like nuts and grains and stuff, and they have kind of an all hands on deck approach right now where every employee has to do a shift in the warehouse packing boxes because they're seeing such a high order volume. But if you were able to kind of push the number of orders back to normal a little, but build the size of that order, perhaps that can even help the business in other ways.
So the reality is that people are purchasing more items per order, and brands out there just need to leverage that fact. Either promote adding more items to each order, or incentivizing on that, and so forth.
Yeah, it could be a higher free shipping at a higher number of items, let's say. Like maybe it's instead of currently on your website, we actually saw a lot of retail customer traffic to the website that didn't go to product pages, so they just hit the homepage. And I think that it's possible that those are kind of the barriers they're seeing. But maybe and maybe this depends on the type of customer. Maybe for existing customers, you want to kind of push them into that mode where you say for new customers, it's harder to guess sort of what their basket size is going to look like, but even though it has been increasing, but for existing customers, maybe you use a promotion that's free shipping with 10 items purchased, which seems maybe a little crazy when the average is say 4 to 5 items, but you are really trying to make them think deliberately about what they're putting in that basket, but also hoping that they take advantage and make a big order.
That's a great tip. Um, so far, great and interesting stuff. Anything else?
I mean, in terms of say what people are purchasing, I think there's been interesting trends. The one we saw the most interesting is probably actually like underwear and loungewear, which is where you'd kind of expect to have a high growth right now. Both existing and new customers have started purchasing underwear more. Have been purchasing loungewear more. Existing customers still purchase underwear more. New customers, however, have literally flipped the percentage from February, where not only where it used to be that they purchased underwear more as a volume of their orders, and now loungewear has overtaken it. Obviously, it's a particularly hot item in the current climate where all you're doing is lounging around your house. Versus on the other end of the spectrum where something you may not expect to have grown at all would be shoes, because who needs them? And it seems as though the shoe industry, or what we looked at, has been extremely promo heavy. So while there has been an increase in new customers and an increase in certain parts of behavior, new customers have shown over 100% increase in using a discount, 50% increase in existing customers, and overall it's kind of hurt AOV. There's been about a 10% drop from the norm. But so shoes have clearly tried to remain top of mind in the market by taking a promo heavy approach, whereas loungewear is selling itself.
Got it. And from these data facts that you're seeing and trends that you're seeing, can we derive any type of action item or maybe advise on what to do with, to either brands that are heavily promotional these times or to brands that are just, they have certain products that are, booming?
I mean, I think a lot of it's sort of what we covered on the short-term, long-term approach. Short term, I think just keep really a close eye on the value of the customers coming in, whether it's average order value or number of items, to be able to kind of adjust the messaging to push one or the other up, depending on what you're seeing to be the more sort of the stronger metric, to kind of lean into which one's working now. And then on the back end to kind of not forget these times when it comes to continuing the messaging plan, to kind of have a strategy now that takes into account the next 4, 6, 9, 12-month plan of, all right, how are we going to talk to the customers who did order, who didn't order, maybe the customers who end up lapsing during this time, how do we get them back 3 months from now? Is that when stores are back open? Is there a way to kind of continue to try and pull them online even when stores start to reopen? So it's just kind of, I'd say, keep track of that KPI now, and then also down the line, these are going to be some segmentations based on their behavior during Corona to maintain a plan for all those different buckets going forward.
So don't be short-sighted. Continue looking into the future, and try to bridge those gaps that might have been created these times with heavy promotions or other types of phenomena. Scott Shapiro, team lead, strategic services, and Optimove's New York office. Thanks much. All of your findings of this research are on the Optimove blog. If anyone here has any questions, please feel free to email us at hello@optimove.com. We'll make sure that those reach Scott. Thank you so much, Scott, and keep safe.
Thanks, Beavis. Have a great one.
Thank you, Scott. As mentioned, the full research and additional recommendations can be found on the Optimove blog. I will share a link to this specific post in the broadcast's comment section. Definitely worth a read. And now, the one and only Nitzan P, Post Funnels Editor-in-Chief, with his daily picks and insights. What do you have for us today, Nitzan?
Hi, Amit. Every now and then, when you stumble on an old TV commercial, they sometimes feel like a time capsule, right? It's always funny to see how things have changed over time, but sometimes these spots remind us of how things actually started. I'm sure many COVID-19 related TV spots will become such time capsules, and today I want to try and predict what can we see in ads these days that will become the new norm once the world goes back to, well, a new kind of norm. Let's start with this one from Visa.
Hi, I'm Sky Brown. And this isn't easy. But this is.
So the Olympic sponsor is telling us to sanitize like Olympians, and I think that this is one habit that will stay with us, right? Second one from Frontier.
What did you learn in school today, dear little boy of mine? What did you learn in school today, dear little boy of mine? I learned that Washington never told a lie. I learned that policemen are my friends. I learned that everybody is free, and that's what the teacher said to me. And that's what I learned in school today. That's what I learned in school.
So we're all learning from home these days. Well, our kids are maybe working from home. I think this will become a more common thing once everything goes back to kind of normal, right? At least compared to what it used to be before. Especially for maybe people that can go to work, can go to school. What I wonder is this the end of sick days, of staying home, just playing video games, eating grilled cheese? Is this the end of these? And if a kid is not feeling very well, just staying at home means they will still have to go to school? Sounds horrible. Third one, from Jared.
It's not about the dress, the venue, the cake, or even the first dance. It's about love, and love can't wait. For help with your virtual wedding, go to jared.com.
So Jared is now hosting, helping with online weddings. And once people get used to it, is this the destination weddings killer? One can only hope. And we'll finish with this one from BMW.
Right now, we're all having to adapt. So it's only right that at BMW, we adapt the way we support you. Which is why, if you need a vehicle, we're offering special financing options. Just choose the model that best suits you by shopping online. And for the safety of our customers, we're now providing service with at-home pickup and drop-off. Because in times like these, we need to do more than just adapt with each other. We need to adapt for each other. Take advantage of no payments for 90 days plus complimentary scheduled maintenance.
So buying a car can sometimes be a nightmare, right? Wasting whole days at the dealership, a few dealerships. But if we all need to keep our distance and people get used to it, is there a better way? I would argue that there is. But bottom line, brands, think about it when you do your marketing these days. Perhaps being super relevant will help make your message last longer? All of these ads, by the way, can be found on iSpot TV, as you see here. That's it from me for today. See you next time.
And that is a wrap. Hope you found today's broadcast interesting. If you'd like to look at our previous broadcasts, you can find them on optimove.com/marketingamidcorona in one word, or on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/optimove, or on our Facebook page, facebook.com/optimove. And for today's off topic, let's check out this guide by the Financial Times. They're looking at modern manners in the age of Zoom. We're all spending tons of time on Zoom. We at least should follow some kind of guidelines. Do not be a Zoom bore. Learn how to use the mute button. Don't interrupt constantly. Don't be a broadband snob. You have a good internet connection, so what? Not everyone does. Don't be a background bragger. Upperware does not equal anywhere. Keep the camera on. Ignore the occasional child or cat. Invite carefully and ignore the ring light. I will share a link to this article for you to deep dive into these tips, hoping you can at least learn one or two things. Yep, and that's it until tomorrow. Thanks for being with us. See you tomorrow, 11 a.m. Eastern.